Salve te omnes et bene venistis. Welcome back. In this video, we will be covering lines 64 to 80 from Aeneid Book 1, going over the translation and the grammar, following with the notes in our book. Before we begin, just a quick reminder about our color coding. Our red words are indicating our subjects. Our blue words are indicating our objects, regardless of whether they happen to be in the accusative case, and our green words indicate our verbs. And then everything else fits in some other way that we will go over. So, with that out of the way, let's do this. We pick up as Juno has just arrived at Aeolia to see the king, and so we see tum Juno supplex. Then Juno, and this suplex is obviously describing Juno, so we will say something like as a suppliant, as a someone who is asking for a favor. So then Juno, as a suppliant, we have to go down here to usast. This is from the verb utor. It is deponent, so this looks passive, usa est, but it is actually active. She used. And the other thing about utor is that utor wants the ablative case used in place of the accusative as if it were a direct object. So we're not going to say with these voices like we normally would. We're going to say that Juno, as a suppliant, used these words, which is a perfectly fine translation of vox in context. She used these words ad quem. And the quem is Aeolus, who was referred to in the preceding lines. All right. So to Aeolus, then, Juno, as a suppliant, used the following words. Once again, with his, we see that the his is pointing ahead to the speech that is coming. So, what is that speech? She starts off, Aeole, vocative, right? O Aeolus. For to you, right? We see this tibi, the dative form. The pater divum and the rex hominum. Now, we've seen divum enough times by now to remember that this is not the accusative. This is the syncopated, abbreviated form of the genitive plural, divorum. And hominum, we know, comes from the third declension word homo. So these are genitive plurals. The father of the gods and the king of men. Another fancy way of describing Jupiter. To you, the father of the gods and the king of men, dedit. And here again, we see dare used with infinitives. And, as your note reminds you, this use of dare means, with infinitives, doesn't mean give as much as it means something like has given the power or has granted the ability. So the the father of gods and king of men, Jupiter, has given to you, Aeolus, the power both to calm and to raise the waves, fluctus. We see this is a fourth declension accusative plural. The waves by means of, ablative of means, the wind, using the wind. All right, this is the power that Jupiter has given to Aeolus. And then Juno continues, gens inimica mihi, a race that is, we would say, that is hateful to me. Not hostile, but hateful. This is the negative form of amicus. All right, so not a friend, an unfriendly race to me. Navigat is sailing. We see quite simple, the terrenum aequor, the Tyrrhenian sea. And then we see here again, portans, a present active participle, taking two objects, ilium et penates. All right, so this race is carrying or bringing Ilium, which we know also means Troy, to Italy, again, with this accusative, so we say to, and also carrying the conquered gods, right? Conquered household gods to Italy. So this is the problem. And then we see a series of 4 imperative verbs. This is Juno's wish for Aeolus. Incute vim ventis. Strike power into the winds. Now we see that the in is here on incute, and we know that ventis is dative because of this prefixed verb. Okay? Once again, the prefix makes ventis dative. Strike force into the winds and overwhelm obrue the sunken ships. A pupus is literally, of course, just a deck of a ship, but in this case it means the whole ship. Or age diversos, drive them, we have to understand them from the masculine form of this adjective, drive them in different directions or apart, and these are the men, the Trojans, and scatter or throw about, right? Scatter their bodies upon the deep. And this is an ablative, not a dative, an ablative of place where. Scatter their bodies upon the deep. Okay, so that is Juno's desire. Then she moves on to say, sunt mihi. Now we remember that when sum esse appears with a dative like mihi or tibi, there are for me, but you can also just say I have. Perfectly fine way to translate it. However, what I have is going to be the subject, so we see the red. What are there for me? What do I have? Bis septem nymphae. Twice 7 nymphs, so 14 nymphs. Praestanti corpore. These are two ablatives. This is what we call an I stem, so it should end with an E, but it doesn't. It ends with an I. This is an ablative of description, or sometimes called an ablative of quality. All right, so we would say nymphs of exceedingly beautiful bodies, or excellent bodies. All right, so this is the quality or description of the nymphs that Juno wants to highlight. There are for me twice 7 nymphs with exceptional bodies or of exceptional body. All right, and just as before, praestanti corpore is singular, but since we are talking about nymphae, plural, we might translate this plural. Of whom, so this quarum is referring to the nymphae, and then we have this quae, which is also referring to the specific nympha that she's about to talk about, of which the one who is, right? Or which we might say of whom, and then we can jump to Deopeia. Deopeia is the one who is, depends on how involved you want to get. All right, of whom this one, Deopeia, is pulcherrima forma, most lovely with respect to. This is an ablative of respect because pulcherrima needs it. She is most lovely in her beauty, or with respect to her beauty. Let's continue on. Now we're back to first person, so we're not talking about Deopeia anymore as the subject. It's Juno again. I will, we see both of these verbs are future, dicabo and jungam. I will join, and of course we have to understand her, Deopeia. I will join her in a stabili connubio, a stable marriage. Okay, a stable marriage. And I shall declare her, we see the here, the feminine, so we know that this is referring back to Deopeia. I shall declare her rightly yours. The idea of proper or proprius is that it is your own thing. So I shall declare her to be yours, proprium. Okay. All right. Ut. We are entering a purpose clause here. Okay, we are entering a clause of purpose with the subjunctives, exigat and faciat. All right. What is the purpose of this, of making this arrangement? So that, and then we see that in this line there's nothing, right? There's no subjects or objects. So what is going on here? Well, we can start with exigat down here. And at this point now, the subject has gone back to deopeia. All right, what will deopeia do? Deopeia will basically spend the time or complete her time, pass her time with you, tecum, omnis annos, an accusative of duration of time. She will spend all her years with you. This is not the object of exigat. It is the accusative duration of time. So how long will she spend with you? All the years with you. And then this right here is a prepositional phrase with pro. Okay? In return for such merit or deservingness. And this is the merit or deservingness of Aeolus. Okay? So let's go back and look at the whole thing, at least the first part. So that she spends all her years with you in thanks for, or in return for, such merits that you have. Okay? And, still deopeia, she will, and so that she makes you a parent. And we would say of charming offspring, but Latin, as we see, uses the ablative. Okay, uses the ablative here of sweet children, or with sweet offspring. All right, and then we see that Juno has finished talking. So let us come now to Aeolus. We see there's no Thalia here. Instead, the fact that Aeolus pops up tells us the speech has ended. Aeolus haec contra. Once again, we see no verb, so we need to supply something like dixit. Aeolus said these things, and then contra is an adverb, in reply. And so now we start on what Aeolus says. Tuus, he starts off. And then the vocative, O regina. And then we see that the tuus eventually ends up here at the labor. All right, and what is missing from this, right, from this whole phrase? Because this optes right here is inside. We'll put some square brackets around this. It is inside an indirect question. So it's not the verb that's the main verb in the sentence here. The verb that is missing is est. So we need to supply that. It is your business, O my queen. To. All right, this is not a complementary infinitive. That's why it's not in green. It's actually acting as the predicate of the understood verb est. It is your business, O my queen, to seek what you desire. All right, and we see the subjunctive here, opto optare. We see the present subjunctive here in the indirect question. And quid is the object. What do you seek? Okay, so, O my queen, it is your business, your work, to seek out the things that you want, or the thing that you want. For me, see the dative, for me, the right thing. Now, fas is a fun word. It is an indeclinable word, which means it does not change form, whether it's nominative or accusative or genitive, it does not matter. But we frequently only see it in the nominative case with est, creating an expression. It is proper. It is correct. So, for me it is correct, and then just like explorare was the predicate of the understood est, so too is capessere. It is proper for me to essentially follow orders, right? Capessere, to perform, to undertake the things that are ordered. Neuter plural object of capessere. So we would just say to follow orders. That is what is right for me. And then let's come now and see the last of Aeolus' speech. To, back again to to, you, O my queen. And then we see a lot of the twos, right? There's a lot of two. The first verb we see though is down here. Okay, konkilias. You, O my queen, win over for me, this dative here, mihi. You win over for me whatsoever this is of a kingdom. So this regni here is a partitive genitive, the note tells you, and it is going with hoc, or quodcumque hoc, if you like. This is an expression of modesty. Whatever kingdom this is would be a fine way to translate it, but literally, whatever this is of a kingdom. You win it over for me, and you win over or placate the scepter and Jove. Now, there is a note here that suggests you can read these two together because of a rhetorical device called hendiades. You might be able to read this as Jupiter's power, or Jupiter's scepter. You win that over for me. And you give, and then we see it again with das, accumbere. You grant to me, mihi, still mihi, the ability or power to recline at the feasts of the gods. Divorum again. A quick note about epulis. This epulis right here is again a dative, not an ablative, because the prefix on accumbere. All right, prefixed verbs take datives, and the note tells you that epulis is a dative. So you grant me the power to recline at the feasts of the gods, and last thing, you make, and then we see here potentem is accusative, and the note suggests you understand a me. All right, instead of a mihi, it's a me. You make me powerful. And then we have two genitives, nimborum and tempestatum. So you make me powerful over the clouds and the storms. And that is where it ends. All right. In our next video, we will continue on to see the results of Juno and Aeolus's little tete-a-tete. Maximus gratias et valete.